Alright guys, Delzinski here, and what a terrible day it has been for the wrestling fan, and what a terrible day it has been for wrestling news, as reports have been coming out thick and fast now, and you know what that means. When they come thick and fast like this, it gives indication that there is indeed some substance behind it. And that is worrying, because today it was reported that TNA had lost their national TV deal with Spike TV. And this is catastrophic. Yes, catastrophic for TNA Impact Wrestling, because this could literally be the final nail in TNA's coffin. And I really say that with regret, disappointment, and sadness, because I really hope they can turn this around. And I hope as well that this rumour and these reports are not true, and TNA still have a chance to negotiate with Spike. But it's not sounding good, guys. And you know, for me, I said I'm disappointed. I am. But I feel that the whole wrestling world should be disappointed by this news, because I have no respect for the wrestling fan that celebrates when a company is in trouble, and you know, when someone is actually happy that this news comes out, it's like, oh, good riddance to TNA. I mean, they've done nothing for 10 years plus. They are useless. No. Just no. Come on. Think about the big picture here. The way the wrestling industry thrives is when smaller companies like TNA, like Ring of Honor, grow, flourish, get bigger, and start to produce better products. Ultimately, this makes the WWE produce a better product because they have competition. If these smaller companies fall away, there's no competition for the WWE, and we get a lame-ass product that we've had for a considerable amount of time. The best thing for business is to have these companies grow and get bigger and produce entertaining wrestling shows which we will love as wrestling fans. And as wrestling fans, we should thrive and want these companies to succeed. We should not be bashing them when they're at their lowest point. So if you are one of those guys, I suggest you to think about these things and look at the bigger picture. Think about as well what this means for a company like TNA. It's not just because they produce not a great product. I mean, that's not it. Think about the wrestlers themselves, the cutbacks that TNA will have to make if they do survive. But if they don't, all of these wrestlers will be out of a job. Not just the wrestlers, the people behind the scenes, the people that make these work, these shows come together. The guys that put up the ring, the guys that do the lighting. Hell, the coffee guy that does the coffee runs for the wrestlers. Everybody goes out of a job. Think about these people. There's livelihoods on the line here. It's not as clean cut as a company doesn't do the best product, so it should go out of business. That's completely the wrong mentality. And to be honest, if you think like that, you're not a wrestling fan. Now, what does this mean for TNA? Because it's not the be-all and end-all of TNA. I mean, it's a big, big, big problem. But there are options. If Spike cannot be negotiated with, and Spike have said, look, you've got to find a new home, and TNA accept that, then they've got to look around. And they've got to see the options that are on the table for them. They do need to acquire a new TV deal in the US. But who would be the network that would pick them up? Now, the issue here is that Spike gave them a prime time slot. They gave them big exposure. Albeit, sometimes they didn't promote them properly, they did give them a good slot. TNA didn't draw the best ratings, but they didn't draw the worst either. Now, wherever they go next, if it's a big network, let's take, for example, maybe TNT, the Turner Network. Now, we saw before the way that Ted Turner produced WCW back in the day. Now, could he do the same thing with TNA? I very much doubt it. And the reason being for that is that, quite frankly, the wrestling industry doesn't have the buzz that it used to have. It's not as hot as it was before, back in the days of the Monday Night Wars. So, if Ted Turner did pick them up, TNT picked them up and put them on their network, I very much doubt they'd get a primetime slot like they did with Spike. They'd probably be put on around about midnight. So, albeit that they're on a big network, they're still not going to be prime time, and their audience is going to be less. The only positive that comes out of this is the fact that they do sign with a large network. Now, Spike had about 85% of the US audience. They reached out to that percentage. And the likes of the Turner Network, there's a lot of others. I don't know all the ins and outs of US networks and which ones are great and which ones are not. But the bigger ones can reach out to around about 85%. The smaller ones, not so much. They're not as significant. So, for example, if they did get on a Turner Network or something similar, they could have a slot, but it wouldn't be a great one. The other option is they go for a smaller network, and they do get a primetime slot, but it's obvious. A smaller network means a lesser audience. They don't reach out to as many people. So again, TNA are at a loss. Now, with this being the case, TNA are going to have to make cutbacks. That means, reduction in superstars, reduction in probably the production of the show itself. I mean, the production now is okay, but it's not amazing. So this is going to take a real knock-on effect to the company as a whole. So if they can't negotiate a good deal, and when I say a good deal, similar to Spike, where they had a primetime slot on a major network, this is going to be real tough times for TNA. So what are the other options? I mean, let's say they can't get a deal at all and they are faced with an ROH situation. I mean, are they going to be web-based? I mean, that's difficult. And I mean, that would mean even more releases because there would be no funding from a major network. And you've got to worry if it does get to that stage. The other option, and this is because I am from the UK, and this is a real huge risk, don't get me wrong, but this is something I was thinking about. I did even tweet Dixie Carter this today. And I think if you believe or if you agree with me, then go ahead, jump on my Twitter and retweet that tweet to Dixie Carter and let her know that you also support this cause, because what I think we should be doing right now is saying to Dixie Carter, look, okay, this isn't great, but there are options. Think about these things and think long and hard and reevaluate what you want to do, what you want to work towards, what can make TNA work in the current circumstances. And my idea, well, it's not my idea, I think it's been floated around for a while now, is TNA has a huge fan base here in the UK. Now, I go to the shows every year in January. They sell out at Wembley Arena. They sell out in Manchester. They sell out in Birmingham. They sell out in Glasgow. They do a great trade here. Not just that as well, they've got a good TV deal with Challenge TV. It's on Freeview. So comparing that to the WWE, who are on a paid subscription service like Sky Sports, again, they're reaching out to a bigger audience. So TNA seem to be doing all the right things here in the UK. Now, could that mean that at some point they can make the decision to hop across the pond and come and start their promotion here in the UK with the issues that they've got in the US at the moment? I think it's a big risk, but I think it could be an option. The risks really are, if you think about it, TNA come over here once a year. It's a spectacle and all us fans don't get it that often. So we all want to go when they come across the pond. They have unique selling points. Kurt Angle, Hulk Hogan, Sting before. I mean, they had these guys that were big draws. Now, if they do make all these cuts, they probably won't have them. So will the appeal still be there to go? I think it would be if they retained the right talent. The problem here is that you're trying to turn something that happens only once a year into possibly a weekly thing with tapings. Does that work? Would people be interested? TNA would have to find a home for starters, like they did in Florida. I don't think it would work with them traveling around frequently just for their Impact shows. Like they had at Universal Studios, I think they'd have to find a home here. If they did that, then you would have to see if it's viable and people would actually come to that shows on a weekly basis. And that's my only worry, because the novelty wears off. But if you're a strong wrestling fan, you would go. And the other option is to work with the indie side of the UK talent base. Reach out to these UK organisations, bring in the best talent that we've got here in the UK. And when you do come to that decision to make your cutbacks and decide who you want to bring over to the UK, you make that decision purely based on wrestling, and also you look at their mic skills as well. I would not look to retain guys like, albeit that they have done phenomenally well recently, guys like Bobby Lashley. No, I would let Kurt Angle go. We all know he wants to go back to WWE anyway. I know no one's going to like this one, but Jeff Hardy, he wouldn't be able to come overseas anyway with his bands, but he's going to have to go. Matt Hardy, you can go and all. The guys I'll be looking to keep are your Austin Aries, your Ethan Carters, your Rockstar Spuds, your Wolves, Eddie Edwards, Davey as well. Those sort of guys, the high flyers, the people that have got good in-ring technique, decent mic skills, the guys that can make your company credible from a wrestling perspective. It's not about the name, it's about what you can do. And if you remember when TNA started as a company, Total Non-Stop Action is their name, and that's what they gave you. They don't give you that like they used to. They've taken steps to get the six-sided ring back. Now establish that talent. Austin Aries, for me, you look at it now, he's almost at the top of the company again. He's almost back where he belongs, in my opinion. Build your company around a guy like Austin Aries. I thought you were doing that before, but you chose to move away from it. Bobby Roode, another one. Get him, keep him in the fold. I think that's the way you've got to go if you were going to make drastic cuts, which sounds like it could be possible. Now, I mean, the other thing that for me that could have been the icing on the cake with the Spike deal falling apart is this whole Bellator MMA garbage. I'm not saying that Bellator as a sport is garbage. I'm saying it's the way that Spike treated TNA. TNA was the bitch to Bellator. TNA was the feeder to Bellator. And what did Bellator exactly give back to TNA? Rampage Jackson, King Mo, guys that were meant to wrestle for the company, but actually just didn't do anything at all. And there was even one point where these guys were supposed to have a match in the ring, and what happened? Bellator pulled on the deal and took back these superstars because they didn't want them getting injured before their Bellator fights. That is garbage. Spike taking TNA for a mug here. There was only one beneficiary from this, and that was Bellator and Spike. TNA got nothing from this deal. TNA are giving you their world champion to come on your show and fight for you. You don't give them anything back. For me, this is where friction could have built between the two sides. And the unfortunate thing is here that TNA were held to... They had their arms tied. I mean, they were the network, and as you can see now, this network has decided to let them go, and this has caused huge issues for TNA. TNA could never bite the hand that feeds them. They couldn't turn around and say, look, do you know what? this does nothing for us, this Bellator promotion. We're not doing this anymore. They couldn't. Because if they did, they probably would have got dropped a lot earlier than they have already. And you know what? What Bellator did and Spike did with that ultimately damaged TNA's product even more, because when these guys started coming across for no apparent reason, and I'm pretty sure that TNA had to pay them a hefty sum to do it, you know, that was like when I was seeing guys like Rampage Jackson coming in over an AJ Styles. Wrong. And I just feel that my eyes have been opened a bit more to this scenario. Was it a case that it was Spike pushing for this to happen? And if it was, you know, maybe TNA recently have started noticing this is a problem and also been pushing back a little bit. I mean, I would not be happy that my world champion is fighting on another show when I get nothing in return. Maybe this was part of the indication that, you know, the relationship was becoming a bit sour, and Spike again chose to take the option to say, look, go find a new home. Ultimately, if TNA had another deal lined up, I would say this is all good, because they get away from this Bellator garbage promotional bullshit that they've got at the moment. But they didn't have that. They don't have that in place at the moment. If they can get another network with a primetime slot, then they're back in business. But that's a lot easier said than done. So what else does this mean for the superstars of TNA? Well, it could very well become open season, because there's going to have to be cutbacks. If there's not going to be cutbacks, then and TNA go out of business, then there is an array of superstars here that are ready to be picked and taken from left, right and centre. Ring of Honor, I'm sure, will be interested. WWE, I'm sure, will have their eyes on a few superstars here or there. But the big winner of all of this is Jeff Jarrett with his Global Force Wrestling, because I'm sure he's sitting there listening, watching and thinking, I want him, I want him, I want him, I want him. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Jeff's been in contact with Spike trying to get a deal out of them to bring his Global Force Wrestling in as a replacement to TNA, because he could very well negotiate that if Spike are looking for something better than TNA, something fresh and new. They could go down this route. They've dealt with Jarrett before. They might deal with him again. Now, the reason why I say that is because I heard that there was a specific reason why TNA and Spike, well, why Spike was not happy with TNA. And this reason is a certain individual that goes by the name of Vince Russo. Spike had apparently told TNA on numerous occasions that they did not want to do business with Vince Russo. They did not want to be associated with him. They heard his bad news, and they didn't like Russo as a person. So, if he did come back, they would not want to do business anymore. Well, Spike got wind of the fact that Russo has been working behind the scenes at TNA, and this was one of the reasons why they pulled the plug. Why? Why would you take that risk for someone who really has gone from mistake after mistake after mistake from the Attitude Era? Why? Why do that? And you know, I had always thought I could see the fingerprints of Russo coming here and there, but I never wanted to believe he was back. But this almost secures that he is back working behind the scenes, and this has cost you potentially the biggest problem, or given you the biggest problem, and now may cost you your company. Was it worth it, TNA? Was he really the best person that you could get? Now, saying all of that, I actually think TNA's product has got stronger recently. The way that they've done the Destroyer, Bobby Lashley, has been great. The way Aries has now got himself back up top. We've got guys like James Storm with proper credible heel storylines. We've got Bobby Roode as another credible superstar. You know, whether he's a heel or a face, he's always wanting to kick ass. He doesn't take shit from anybody. The roster was building nicely. We've got the Wolves there as a good, credible tag team. The Six Sides are back. I pretty much thought TNA was going in the right direction, so it kind of threw me to find out today that Spike are pulling the deal now. 4 months ago, when none of this was there, and you have to give TNA their credit in that retrospect. I mean, TNA have done a lot of changes to their company to get some good storylines going here, and you know, this has always been the problem with TNA. They put in all this effort to get it to a stage, and then they are hit with a major setback, or they bring the setback on themselves. So I'm surprised that they've done this now. I thought 4 months ago they were well in their right to, because TNA, you know, as much as I love this company and I want them to succeed, they had churned out some terrible stuff over the past 4 months, and they'd only started getting their act together around about a month or so ago. They really put some effort in and started to turn this back around. So it hurts from that point of view, and it's disappointing. I want to know your views, guys, what you think on this. I mean, what do you think TNA can do? Do you think they can get a major network back with them? Do you think they'll get a primetime slot again? Do you think they'll have to go with a smaller network? Could they come to the UK and make it work? And what happens to these superstars? Where do they go? I mean, I have a feeling a lot will go back to WWE, the big names, the big guns, and then I think Jeff Jarrett could clean up. I really hope that is not the case. I do not want to see TNA go out of business. I think it's best for business that they stay in the fold and they do get back on track. As a wrestling fan, that is what's best for business. Guys, let me know via the comments box below. I want your views on this topic. I'm pretty passionate about this. I take this seriously, and I think it's a huge knock on the wrestling industry that we could lose a company now. So all that's left to be said, until next time, if I get more news on this, I will update you. Follow me on Twitter, and please, if you do think that TNA could work in the UK, as I said earlier on in this commentary, look in the comments box and I will leave the tweet that I sent to Dixie Carter. Please do me a favour and just click retweet. Let your presence be felt. Let her know that this is an option because the fan base is here. So as I said, all that's left to be said, please rate, comment and subscribe. This is Delzinski, signing out.